This was brought to you by the broadcast. It was brought to you by me, Rob Gammon, and welcome to another video. This was brought to you by Robcast, though this is going to be just a normal video. I made this level Little Planet. It was a bit overwhelming and a bit daunting. Here are the titles. So I built this out of wood and I applied it to the thin layer. Over here is Dan Lump with his shooting friend. Here is Johnny and Dave Arnold with Sanjeet, their stepfather. Over here is Nana Lump, and as you can see, she has northern heritage. As you can probably tell, I wanted to make sure that I respected how they speak. Over here is Johnny. Johnny has autism and learning disabilities, so sometimes you might struggle to say the right thing. Over here is what is supposed to be their mum, I don't know, what's her name? Their mother, Mary Arnold, although I just put, well, that's Dave Arnold. Here is Dan Lump, and originally I was going to have him having a conversation with Elle to create like a moral quandary situation, so like, because Dan is supposed to be fighting against this, someone who's part of this regime, kind of similar to what's going on in the United States with Trump and the Trump administration, and many of the policies, and also the policies of the Thatcher government in the 80s were reminiscent of this, and I was inspired by them to create this storyline. I've centered up the swearing. As you can see, the first bit is Den. When he says "F off, lovely," that's Dan Lump. So why are you doing this? Can't we just? That's Elle. That's his wife I was talking about. She's a trans woman, so she gets a lot of stuff herself. And then Mr. Lump flips out in temper towards certain people who don't agree with him. And then Elle is the one who keeps her calm in these situations. She's an archaeologist and is the daughter of Jamie McBow, who is a bit like Indiana Jones in a way. So Dan Lump is quite strong. He's got his gun with him. That's supposed to be his disabled parking badge. This is Nana Lump, and here she is with her lovely curly hair and her big strong frame. She's so strong she can lift up these bricks. Johnny's very strong. He's 6'4" and he's 20 stone. He's a very, very big individual, a very well built, very strong individual. There's no music in this because of copyright reasons, as you know. Dan Lump is wearing his famous tweed jacket, his dyed hair, and his hair that he has dyed in a sink, whilst banging on about how much he does not like gender critical people, because he's very pro-trans. Also, Dan Lump, and also Elle McBow is the one who tries to get on with everybody, who tries to see everyone's point of view. Well, Dan Lump is a strong believer in equality. He does have a tendency to flip out towards people who do not share his views. This is a common issue with people who haven't really grown up. Dan Lump had a father who was really nasty to him, and he never really had a dad. And his grandfather is sort of his father figure from when he was younger in his formative years. Dan Lump was born in Swansea, so he represents Swansea, whereas Mark Jamon, G-or-M-O-N, represents Western culture, and his uncle was like his father figure, and his uncle died when he was 14, very young, and Mank had to bear the responsibility of telling his family that his uncle went. He's like the second oldest in his family, which is understandable, I think. Dan Lump's the second youngest, actually, and he had to tell his family that his mother passed. His mother was kind of like that figure. Dan Lump lost his mother very young, and that devastated him. So Dan Lump here, this is Upland Gardens, where he lives with Elle McBow and their 6 children. That's Nana Lump. Over here is supposed to be a van. I gave up because I was just tired. Over here is a housing place, housing association. So in America they have what you call housing associations, right? Public housing groups. In this country we have housing associations that work with the council. America is slightly different to ours. So if you're in America they call it public housing, whereas here in Britain we just use the term council house, council estate. Here is, and look, we're fancy. Over here, some rose gardens I tried to build. I tried to create gardens that are nice. I used the Colin editing tool for this. I was really stressed out, and I thought, I need to create a moral story. I want them to be very stressed out about he's literally going to do this extremely terrible thing to these people working for the, the Tory regime within my world. At the end of the day, they're people too. They have families too. They have friends too. And El McBo screams, cares, and is horrified and wants to make sure that, and reminds Denlum, if you're a good person, I'll leave it up to the viewers. I'll leave it up to you viewers, to decide. Whatever, I don't know. Viewers to decide whether or not Denlum is in the right. Because I don't know. But El reminds him, if you're going to do this, you need to take on board what I'm saying here. Your actions have consequences. And you know better. You understand. Why are you betraying your principles? I'm trying to get this right. Right as rain. Much better. Not that's supposed to say, not to turn women and children out of the houses. So, that's not supposed to. That's supposed to, in LittleBigPlanet, there was a limit to how much you can write. But it says, supposed to say, women and children being turned out of the houses because, they turn people out of the houses, get them into work, putting kids in homes, taking them, forcing them to work. And Elaine Smith is the taskmaster, is using them as cheap labour. This is kind of a parallel to the prison industrial complex in the United States, and we can look into that, that's his own thing. But yeah, I wanted to create this moral quandary where he is put in this really, really tough situation. He's got a question, am I really this person? Do I really want to do this? I know I can be extremely violent. I'm not violent, but Denlum's character, I mean characters, Denlum here, I'm extremely violent. He's got autism, ADHD, he's got borderline personality disorder, learning disability, he's got a lot going on. He struggles with the class he was born. I came up with a condition in my world where the class, class dysphoria exists and people don't like their class, being treated terrible because of their class. Often experience a distress between their natural born being equal, being a human being, and their class. Kind of like gender dysphoria with gender and biological sex and that sort of thing. But what I think is important is that this is my way of trying to understand the minds that what's physical doesn't always determine what's mental, I guess. The sack boy there, he's supposed to be gobby tall, based off of the famous comedian in the duo Cannonball, if you remember them. If you've probably heard of them, but they were known for their comedic acts. And Bobby Ball played Lee's father in Not Going Out, and he was very well known. He was a very big character indeed, both in the 80s, 90s, and in the 2000s, and 2010s, as Lee's father, right, within the series. I watched it many times before. So Denham's got all these conditions. He's very impulsive because of ADHD. His autism means he struggles to understand this, but he has a very strong special interest when it comes down to playing the keyboard and equality, making sure all people are equal, and of course studying about people who commit extremely violent crimes, Joe Keller being one of them. He got bugs on him. Denham's got a bad temper, and Ella says don't treat his kindness as a weakness. You'll help anyone out. The old woman across the road. You'll make sure that no one's treated badly. You want to save the black person from being shot by the police. And that was a massive, and he literally got shot. this is all fiction, by the way. Denham was just there in the car as the police officer shot this man. He was, you know, a person of colour, and the police, you know, shot him. And it was a lot of uproar. They're not protecting this guy. This guy was innocent, done nothing wrong, and just shot. Denham took the bullet. He's in hospital for weeks, but he came out. And him and that man were having a laugh in the pub, so yeah. Denham's very casual with his protection of people. Another thing, he studied equalities and how, in social studies, that was the course he did that got him studying about equality law and about how we can apply, how to ensure that the government and state institutions can support people who are struggling, support minority to make sure that they are inclusive of minorities, and studying about different cultures and languages and finding ways to include people and actually coming up with government policy. So then obviously did a dissertation that took him a long time, because obviously he's also got bad vision, but he's got an incredible ability to focus, and he has incredibly good grammar and incredibly good spelling, and he spent his entire time focusing on this essay, and it helped him to regulate this system. Now, of course, Denham is very much an aggressive man when provoked. When Posh comes to shove, you know, you'll end up with a lot of injuries. But Denham is generally a good family man. You know, he's a very good gardener, and he set up a community-supported agricultural project up in the sticks, and that was his pride and joy for many years. And he managed to help hundreds of families. I think he was across the central city area of Swansea, city centre, or downtown, as people say in North America, with regard to houses. Let me do this a minute. It does this sometimes. There we go. Perfect. Looking much better. That's the and what's happening here is it goes off sometimes, the PS control. And basically Dan Lump is somebody who has actually, he set up the CSA to help support families across the area, and it actually helped the environment and saved the law to help people to buy food. So people grow their own food, they weren't relying on, you know, these really bad practices. And then I've actually got people who were working on these things, migrant workers, and actually got them to work and gave them full pay working in his drug rehabilitation centre, which he'd built. So a lot of stuff then I've done. Anyway, I'm going to move on. This is brought to you by me, Robert Gowron, and I shall move on.